So yeah, thanks. This evening, I'd like to introduce you to a new way of thinking about authentication. A way that will greatly improve security without compromising on the speed and convenience that you expect today. But to understand where we're going, I need to talk a little bit about where we came from. So let's take a look at a time that's known among security researchers as perfect security. This was a very brief time in history at the beginning of the 1800s, and it was characterized by a certain societal way of thinking. And the best mechanical locks at the time were thought to be unbreakable. Unless you used physical force, you could not open a lock and access whatever was behind it. You needed the key. So this created a certain way of thinking about security that today we might consider fairly irresponsible. This changed one day in 1851 at the Great Exhibition in London. This was a huge exhibition, but one of the most exciting things was this thing on the left, the Brahma Challenge lock. And a man named A.C. Hobbs, who had made a name for himself breaking locks and then selling better ones, a sort of white hat hacker of his day, you could think about it like that. He developed a tool that could pick the Brahma Challenge lock in 48 hours. This had been a challenge that had stood for 70 years at this point. On that day in 1851, as the news of this solved challenge spread, we lost perfect security, and we have never gotten it back. There have been changes and improvements over the years in response to this event, ways to solve the techniques that Hobbs used to break the lock, but we have never regained perfect security. Society changed permanently at that point. This brings us to where we are today. Obviously, there's been a lot of time in between, but the authentication that we experience today is characterized by things like usernames and passwords, two-factor authentication using Google Authenticator, click on all the squares that contain bicycles. These are the types of authentication that we experience today, but they contain echoes of the event in the past when we lost the way of thinking about security. So today we have settled into a fragile compromise of convenience and good enough security. This is the standard, but I believe cryptocurrency wallets, ironically enough, can give us something that we currently don't have, something a little bit better, actually a lot better. And I want to give a bit of a comparison to the change that we've undergone, which was we started off with locks and keys with pretty good convenience, but perfect security. Then we moved to modern authentication where we experience very good level of convenience, but we've sacrificed a little bit of the security because our attitude to security changed. So this brings us to cryptocurrency wallets. And I want to talk about, a lot of you may be familiar with some of these things, but what is special about them is the capabilities that they allow us to take advantage of. So I want to answer, what is a wallet? In very abstract terms, a wallet is a walled garden, either on a hardware chip, such as a Ledger Nano or a Trezor wallet. These are hardware chips, or within software, so within an operating system, such as MetaMask. They store a secret key, an identity that allows you to perform certain cryptographic operations. Now, these cryptographic operations are the same ones that make the internet that we know today work. And I want to also say that the secret key also directly implies the existence of a public key. Most cryptography today works on this scheme called public key cryptography, whereby the derived public key, and they can look something like this, the derived public key is revealed to the world, but the secret key that is held secret, they work as a pair to carry out these cryptographic operations. So what are they? There are 4 basic cryptographic operations that come in 2 pairs. The first is sign and verify, and the second is encrypt and decrypt. So briefly, what they do is the sign operation. You combine the secret key and a piece of arbitrary data, something you wish to sign. This, for example, could be a rental contract or something that having been delivered, as a receipt of something being delivered, anything, any data you wish to sign. But note that it's the secret key that's doing it. So the person who controls that is doing the signing. This generates a signature, which can then be revealed to the world. The verify step goes the other way, and it takes the public key that corresponds to the secret key and the signature that has been produced, combines it with the original data, and verifies that yes, indeed, this signature was generated by the corresponding secret key using this data. So it allows someone out in the world to verify that yes, indeed, you have produced this signature. Similarly, the other pair allow you to lock and unlock data. So a signature doesn't hide the data, but encryption does. You combine the public key with plain text to yield ciphertext. Ciphertext appears random, but in fact is a concealed form of the plain text. The public key, note that the public key is doing this operation. So when you lock a piece of data, the plain text, the ciphertext can only be unlocked by the person who holds the secret key. So in the decrypt step, you take your secret key, you combine it with the ciphertext, and you yield the plain text. You have unlocked what has been hidden. This gives us a sort of cryptographic tech tree that starts with HTTPS, the basis of the entire internet today. It secures your communications. This then leads to, or the same operations allow what we know as cryptocurrency or blockchain. And then the third level is a layer on top of that, or cryptocurrency wallets. And this is what we are going to exploit. HTTPS is the basis of the internet. It secures your web traffic, but the identity is hidden from view. This is a little known fact, but within every installation of every browser, so imagine you click and you download Chrome, the binary that has been compiled into that program also contains at its core a unique secret key for every single download. You will never see this secret key, but it will be used to encrypt and secure all of your web traffic. The operations are also restricted to web traffic, so you cannot sign or encrypt arbitrary data. Cryptocurrency, on the other hand, opens this box. It uses the same operations that make HTTPS work, but the identity is now fully under the user's control. You can do it on paper if you want, because you are solely interacting with the values that are at the core of these operations. The operations you are able to perform are unrestricted. This is obviously sometimes a problem because a user can get it wrong and you can do the calculations incorrectly, but they are under your control. Cryptocurrency wallets take a step back, perhaps. They provide safe access to a blockchain by wrapping the underlying operations in an easy to use and hopefully much less error-prone set of easy functions. The identity is managed by the wallet. Sometimes this is stored on, for example, the chip in a Ledger Nano. This is where the secret key will live. The operations come with guardrails, which help to minimize mistakes. So, given this, how do we do cryptographic authentication? This is sort of a high level, but what's going on is I'm going to identify myself as a user. Normally, nowadays, we would use a username, and I would say, my name is Nicholas Piano, and I'm going to put that in, and then I'm going to put in my password. So I've identified myself as that user. In this case, I'm going to use a cryptocurrency address to do the same thing. After which, the server is going to send me a challenge, and the challenge is going to say, prove that you are who you say you are. Normally, in authentication today, I would use a password, and it would say, only I know the password, so therefore, I am who I say I am. In the third step, the thing that proves who I say I am is the signature. Only I can produce a signature because only I control the secret key. Briefly, I want to say what an address is. A secret key directly implies a public key, as we saw before. Another simple mathematical operation can be applied to the public key to yield an address. The address serves as a global identifier within a cryptocurrency. So if you have the same address, it means it directly came from the same secret key. And very quickly, the challenge is if you can sign something, it means you have the secret key. I want to say one very important thing about this, though, which is called a replay attack, which is when you sign something such as a simple message like yes, this will yield a signature. But if an attacker decides to send the same message, yes, in response to, yes, I will give you all your money, then attaches the same signature, then the signature will still be valid. This is a huge problem because you don't want an attacker to be able to reuse that signature. So to prevent this, you add as much data as you can that is specific to that interaction. This could be as easy as saying, yes, I will give you all my money. But it could also be, yes, I am agreeing to some completely different thing that has nothing to do with giving you all my money. So you are being specific about the interaction. In addition, you can add the date and time when it occurred. So if it's 2 years later, then you can't use the same thing, or at least that can be checked. You can add names, places, name of the messaging service you're using, and then finally you can add a set of random data that allows you to be as specific as possible what you're doing. So the challenge in this case for authentication will look something like this. You will have a challenge type, you will have the address that you're interacting with, you will have the name of the channel that's being used to connect via a WebSocket, for example. You'll have the timestamp, according to the server, and you will have a set of random data. This is what the server will send to you and ask you to sign it to prove your identity. And very quickly, it begs the question, why is this better than a username and password? First of all, very simply, a secret key is much harder to guess than a password. Passwords can be stored in databases of hashes, whereas secret keys can be generated to be much, much more unique and stored always on one device that it never leaves. So the secret key never leaves the user's wallet, ideally. Also, a username and password cannot be used to do more complex operations, such as signing or encryption. And finally, the results of these operations, such as a signature or a piece of encrypted data, are more portable. They can be sent anywhere, they are completely secure, no one is able to tamper with them once they are out in the world. So just to compare this with the authentication we've seen before, we have locks and keys. We have the same convenience as modern authentication, but massively increased security. So I want to give you a brief demo of this happening. Can I do this? Yep. Got it. So this is an application that me and my brother have written to do secure messaging that includes payments. So a sender will pay the receiver a small amount in order to prevent spam and also to make sure that professionals can be compensated for their time. It requires very high security, and this is why we believe that using this method of authentication would allow an identity such as a doctor or a lawyer to remain secure and to have users be able to remain confident that that identity will not change. So how do we go about this? We are going to say connect wallet. Here we're going to see an option to connect to a variety of wallets, including I can scan this QR code with a wallet that lives on my phone. And in fact, any one of you in the audience can scan this. Thankfully, this is not a security problem, since you would simply be giving me access to your account. So don't do that. But thankfully for me, this is not a security risk. So I'm going to connect my wallet here. Sorry about that. Is the internet?
Might be the firewall. So
Oh, really?
like a hotspot.
Oh, maybe.
Do you need a
I can
hotspot?
use mine.
You got it?
There you go. So connect my wallet. Sorry, I appear to be experiencing technical difficulties.
Try another website just to check if it's the
I will do,
internet.
yeah.
And if that's the problem, then you can try my hotspot.
It is. Let me try yours, yeah.
No, how can you use it?
Yeah, it's working, it's working.
Don't worry. Our other speaker was also afflicted by
No worries. Now let me do another thing. Give me a second. Sorry about that. So if I connect wallet, I'll be able to connect. And here I am presented with a challenge to log in. And so it's giving me a timer, so it's saying that this challenge is only valid for a certain period of time. And if I want to see here, I can see exactly what we saw a few moments ago, where it will show me this is exactly what I'm going to sign. So it's showing me what the purpose of it is, my identity. It's showing me a number of things that are specific to this event in order to make it as secure as possible. So when I sign the challenge, then this is going to pop up and you'll see the same chunk of data here, which is what I'm going to sign. Once I sign it, the server has said that I'm authenticated and I've been logged into my account. And it's as simple as that, once the technical problems go away. So the question is, what just happened? I didn't type in a username and password. I didn't use a text code verification or an email verification. I didn't use Google Authenticator. I didn't use any of these things. I just clicked a couple buttons on my MetaMask wallet. So the first thing that happened is that when I connected to the wallet, it sent my address, which is accessible to the web application, to the server. In response, the server sent me a challenge. This was then available to be sent to the wallet, which I did. I sent, and it gave me this signature request, after which I signed it. That signature was sent back to the server, and I'm in. I'm authenticated. So the question is, how can you use this in your application? I highly recommend using Wallet Connect, which is a utility that joins many different wallets, many different blockchains, many different browsers and devices. It has many different types of integrations that come under one very easy API. This can be used very simply in almost any application. Then for your API, you need to have two important endpoints. The first is you're receiving an address and you're returning a challenge. This requires a small amount of calculation on the back end that returns an appropriate challenge for the user's address. And the second thing you're going to do is you're going to receive a signature once the user has sent it back, and you're going to return an authentication token. So you're going to log the user into their account. And that's really as easy as it is. I want to talk about very quickly some risks of this approach. And there are. Some of the risks that exist with this are the same as you might find in other authentication methods, but they still bear mentioning. There is still a human element to the process. When you have complete control over your identity, such as your secret key, there's nothing stopping you from exporting the secret key from the wallet and then sending that secret key in an email. And if you do that, your identity will be compromised. And so when designing an application, this should be kept in mind, that this is something that could happen. Well, you're not designing the application around this necessarily, but it still can happen. The second thing is that the steps that a user has to carry out can be very simple, but the operations that it might be performing are very complex. So when a user types in their username and password, they're not thinking, oh, this username and password can be used to do some complex operation like signing or encrypting something. But in this case, a couple button presses can sign or encrypt arbitrary data. So this is something to be aware of and to make a user aware of. The third is that an application can generate misleading wallet requests. In the process that I just showed you, I said, I'm going to give you this to sign in order to authenticate you, but potentially what could be hidden within that is a payment, for example. You could make it look like you are trying to sign something, but in fact you're actually making them make a payment. Now, this is not a problem if you don't do it. So I mean, I guess don't do that. But that, I guess, is the only thing to say about some of the risks. So thank you very much. And you can find out more at teller.network and some updates at Teller blog. And also you can give the alpha a go at teller.app. And feel free to get in touch with me here on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Any questions?
We now have time for 3 questions. So who wants to go first? Yes, please.
First of all, there's no way I'm going to scan your QR code.
Good one.
How different is this from like passkeys that Apple or 1Password or Google?
That's a good question. So very, very recently, Apple and Google brought out something that's very much like this called passkeys. Well, I think that's the Apple version, if I'm well, there you go. But it's a very similar idea. It creates an authentication system based on these cryptographic keys. The only thing I'd say about that is this gives you a little bit more universal control. So since the goal of these cryptocurrency wallets is to be ubiquitous, that identity that's associated with that can also be ubiquitous. It's not specifically tied to an Apple account. It's not specifically tied to a Google account. It is, even though they might want to make it as portable as possible, nevertheless, they still are, the systems that make them work are still tied to those companies that might make it a little less portable than using a cryptocurrency wallet.
Okay. That was my question.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I have a question about private key self-custodial management, because storing it on a software level is always unsafe. If you kind of go and get like a hardware wallet where it's in a chip, you destroy the chip, your key is gone. So in the end of the day, you pretty much probably will end up with like this mnemonic seed phrase somewhere, storing it in somewhere, under your mattress or in a safe
Yep.
somewhere, but you pretty much cannot like fully escape that loop of things getting like slightly insecure, because like if you want to have
Yes.
the power of having control of that identity and not in the trap of I break the chip and now my power is gone, you pretty much come back to this like very old school way of securing things, and for some people it can be like mentally like
Yes.
overwhelming, and that creates like a very bad user experience. How you think it is possible to overcome like this kind of limitation?
Certainly. So I think those things that you describe, like taking the security steps, making sure that there's a secure backup of your seed phrase, for example, these things are things that are possible with a cryptographic identity. What am I trying to say? The security that is provided, but just at the lowest level, is far, far better than anything that a username and password can provide just from the starting point. You can go to the lengths of making a super long password and putting that in a bank vault if you want as well. You can also do that. So the same levels of security are available to you at the end of the line, but sitting at your computer for a normal user, the amount of security that's available to them using a cryptocurrency wallet is orders of magnitude greater than they would experience with a password.
Okay, and there was one last question here.
So why use a cryptocurrency wallet instead of just the underlying key pairs and just using cryptographic authentication?
Certainly. So, well, the wallet is merely a container for that identity. The reason cryptocurrency wallets, the reason they're there to exploit is because cryptocurrency wallets have an incentive of themselves to become ubiquitous, to gain market share in terms of usage. They have their own incentives, and so what you're basically doing is piggybacking off that incentive to use that ubiquitous goal of theirs to use it for your own ends, in this case, authentication.
So basically get people to be able to use it?
Yes.
Okay.
That's their incentive, and so basically you can take advantage of their incentive. You don't need to give them that incentive, they already have it. So you could make, such as you're describing, your own wallet that is dedicated to simply storing an identity, but at that point you would have no more reason to exist than Google and Apple's passkey solutions.
Lovely. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
I go into the browser here.
And thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to see as the day turned out. We only had time for 3 questions, but we're now going to a beer place. Guillaume will be leading the way. And we welcome you all to join with us, and the speakers will be there, so you will be able to interrogate them with more of your questions there. We would also like to thank all of our lovely sponsors and supporters. So first of all, Commerce School for providing the space for us, and they have been a continued partner with us. We also have been cooperating with Mona. Some of them are here. Can you please raise your hand? Okay. So they have been very kind in providing us with snacks and drinks. And we thank them for their continued support. And that brings an end to our level up session. And yeah, thanks again for coming.
I'm just going to put in the location of